So this is a quick presentation that I wanted to do, actually a what I ate in a day video, quite an odd format because usually what I ate in a day videos is people actually filming what they eat. I just found that easier and a little bit quicker for me as a starter on YouTube to just create a slide deck. So the idea behind this is that basically every time I, seek for information, for inspiration, even in the diabetic community, about what to eat, how to manage food intake, and so on. There is not much on YouTube, at least not as much as I would want to find. So I decided to become an active part of the process and put out some content myself, because usually the amount of information from a scientific standpoint, as a diabetic, you should do this, eat this, not that, is quite large, especially in its intersection with the vegan community, with the vegan, with the topic of veganism. So being vegan, being diabetic, oh my God, how is it? How is it not? And also with the debate on carbohydrates, and even less so when you try to put all this information together with people that are very active, because physical exercise is usually a concern for diabetics, since you have to be aware of and be very careful with blood sugar. So I just wanted to share basically my experience so far and why I choose to eat in a certain way, and yeah, give a practical example might be useful for somebody, or even just for myself if I need to figure out stuff while I'm talking. So yeah, um, a typical day for me starts with quite early, around 5:30. I get 2 hours of physical activity in before breakfast. So I have a workout. For example, today was a push workout, quite intense. And then at around 8, I break my fast with an oatmeal. That's my go-to. I get it almost every day. And one usual oatmeal will have 100 grams of oats. The ingredients are there. So one normal sized banana, soy milk, um, apple, a big apple, or any other fruit. I don't really measure that, but let's say it's around 300 grams because usually they're quite big. And then some other toppings: cinnamon, cacao powder in this case, then pepper and turmeric, because they are a magic combo for combating inflammation. And in this case, and of course, yes, then I have like around 1 or 2 liters of water with breakfast. In this case, as you can see, I calculated that approximately I ate 140 grams of carbs. Um, the amount of insulin that I did was 10 units, so it's a 1 to 14 carbs to insulin ratio. And after I didn't actually log here my glycemic index afterwards, but it was at around 90 at the middle of the morning, around 10-11 a.m. And before lunch it was at around 100, so it was quite stable, didn't have as much of a spike. um, that is mainly because it was pure carbs, unprocessed carbs, and without much fat. Moving to lunch. So lunch is again around 800 calories for me. In this case, I got some whole potatoes gnocchi with 400 grams of beans, and then yeah, a mix of veggies, stewed veggies. So I got in this case broccoli, cauliflower, kale, it might, the range might vary a little bit depending on the day. Some days I have more cauliflower, broccoli, peas, um, or any other frozen vegetables. I find them quite convenient because they are ready very quickly in the microwave, for example, and you can have quite a variety of those at the supermarket. So super fast, super easy to add to the meal. And then yeah, casual herbs and spices. I might have some cumin, some paprika, pepper, turmeric. Um, those I basically have them in every meal. Some salt, of course. And yeah, this was lunch. Again, 130 grams of carbs approximately, with 8 units of insulin. It goes for roughly 1 to 16 carbs to insulin ratio. So again, pretty good. And after the meal, 2 hours after, in the middle of the afternoon, the blood glucose was at around 9 or 100, so pretty good. And going towards dinner, which I usually have, are at around 7. I measured again, and it was at around 100, 90, 100 again. So quite stable throughout the entire afternoon. And in fact, then moving to dinner, I got, as you can see there, at around 90 grams of carbs. Usually for dinner, I stay quite light. I don't like to have like too much of a heavy dinner because it's bad for, it may impact the quality of your sleep because your body is busy digesting. Plus, I like to have the majority of my energy intake throughout the day. I don't need much energy, to sleep. So in this case, I had some potatoes, 100 grams of potatoes with 140 grams of corn, a small can. And then the majority of that big bowl that you see is actually vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, leafy greens, some purple cabbage in this case, 1 bag of salad mix, leafy greens, mixed leafy greens. I usually have 2 to 3 big carrots as a post dinner snack, and usually the dressing is with lemon, tahini, some seaweed if it's around. But yeah, usually at dinner I really like to play with volume, so a lot of veggies that build up, a big colorful bowl, but not as much in calories. Usually an alternative here could be beans, chickpeas, whatever, instead of potatoes and corn. So it's going to be a base of a variety of vegetables with a source of protein, which I always, almost always find in legumes, which I usually cook from dried. Sometimes when I don't have time, I just buy a can of them, but I just like to cook my own. Again, here I only took 3 units, so it's a 1 to 30 ratio. And after dinner, I was actually a little bit low, and I was also low in the morning. So I went to bed with a blood glucose of around 90, and I woke up to 77, which is okay, a little bit borderline, but still acceptable. But probably I could reduce the amount of insulin that I take. Also because here, before dinner, I take also my Lantus, which is now at around 9. I'm actually thinking about lowering it. Because I noticed that it's a little bit too much. So this was it. As you can see, here is the amount of fat is higher than in the other meals, but I mean still 9 grams, plus it's a good source of fats, because it's tahini, it's not any processed or any like oily kind of stuff. So again, the protein intake is also quite decent, although the biggest part of my protein intake is at around at lunch. Usually I go from 40 to 60 grams of protein there, but I usually focus more on carbs. This was a light dinner than usual, lighter than usual, but still, yeah, 600 calories. Usually I get up to 800. It really depends on the day. Other things that so just to give you an overview, in summary, my day revolves around exercise, physical activity, so resistance training in the morning, a yoga session in the late afternoon before dinner. Usually it's either a yoga session or, for example, zone 2 type cardio, so could be like 1 hour biking at the gym, if not outside, and then in general just living an active life. So I walk to the grocery store, I walk to work, I walk whenever I can, basically. In terms of food, for this day the intake was around 2200 calories, around 400 grams of carbs. I'm saying 400 because I had a couple of snacks here and there, pieces of fruit, around 100 grams of protein. Total fat is around 30 grams, which is fine, and total units of bolus is 21 units. So in terms of blood glucose, yeah, the average for today was 99. Usually I have my Dexcom, but now I have to rely on the traditional glucometer, because the Dexcom is not working anymore for some reason. So after breakfast was 110, after lunch 98, and so on. So you can see that it was pretty stable, pretty low, in the perfect range. Some conclusive remarks, some things that I usually really try to stick to when considering, how to arrange my meals, is first of all color. It's so important because of the antioxidants. So if you look at my dinner, for example, it's a huge rainbow inside a bowl, basically, and same for lunch. I try to really focus on micronutrients, always involving something purple, something green, something red, something yellow, because first of all, it's satisfying to see. It's really satisfying to see, and second of all, it does so much good to our body. Then of course playing with volume, so focusing on calorie density. The calorie density of food is a big one for me, because you could have a small piece of bread with some oil on it, and that would be already like 300-400 calories, like nothing. Whereas, for example, this bowl literally took me half an hour to send it down the chute, but yeah, I mean, it was quite voluminous, and maybe you don't realize it from the picture, but it was very big. In fact, my rule is that the other people in the room must be wondering how I am able to finish that. If they don't have that reaction, then it's not even worth bothering for me. But yeah, I mean, big in volume, so you have a big satisfying meal, a very filling meal, full of fiber, full of nutrients, full of color. You get your calories in, whatever you need, but again, it's about being satisfied with a meal. I really focus on that, being actually excited to eat a bowl, such a salad. So you have all the energy that you need, you have all the nutrients that you need, and you are also very, very, very satisfied internally, spiritually. That's how I like to approach my meals. Then the other big thing, of course, is exercise. I'm a big fan of exercising. I like to do it first thing in the morning because of the mental edge that it gives me. But really, exercising should be a no-brainer for everyone. Everyone should be exercising, especially if diabetic, especially after a meal or in general during the day, trying to move, trying to be active, because that impacts blood glucose management so much, so much. And then of course you have sleep. Sleep is very, very, very underrated, I feel. But actually the impact that sleep, getting your 8 hours of sleep in consistently has on blood glucose management, is absolutely outstanding, and I really recommend consuming some Matt Walker resources online. You can easily find it on YouTube, because there is a lot going on with sleep, and not only about diabetes, but in general. Sleep is like the foundation for everything else, for good exercise, for good diet, for living a good life in general. So go and listen to Matt Walker, and read his book Why We Sleep, because it's a huge one. Huge one. It literally changed my life since I knew him. Um, so what to take away from from this what I ate in a day video? So this is the main takeaway. A lot of people say that carbs are bad for diabetics. It really is not the case, and it really depends on a few factors. So is the quality of the carb that you are eating. Of course, if you just rely on bread, white pasta, uh, processed carbohydrates like jams or syrups or those kind of things, then of course you're gonna have a very hard to manage blood glucose, because you will continuously have spikes and then lows and then spikes and then lows, and that is because there is no fiber to protect that sugar. So it kind of hits you directly in the face, and you just have a spike, and then you have to sort of manage it. But if you rely on whole foods instead, on fruits first of all, then on grains, legumes, with a lower glycemic index, then of course you're on a much better path to blood glucose management. And the other factor to consider is fat. Of course, fat is the main cause of insulin resistance. Insulin resistant meaning that your cells are kind of wrapped into this fatty cover that impedes glucose from getting into the cells, which then will use the glucose for fuel their own processes. So the more fat you eat, the more insulin resistance you are. Insulin resistant you are, and the more insulin resistance you are, the more blood glucose will stay. The more glucose will stay, floating around in your blood. Meaning, for a diabetic, that your blood glucose levels will be higher on average. So if you are able to reduce the amount of fat that you take, only focusing on good fats, so for example in my case was some tahini, some nuts and seeds here and there, some chia seeds or some flax seeds, even better, then you're just good to go. You don't need much more than that. And if you focus on good sources of carbohydrates, whole foods, not processed, like fruits, like grains, intact whole grains, and so on, then you're on your path to success, because they will have a much lower impact on your blood glucose, meaning that it will remain more stable. And if you match this with um, with a low fat intake, that gets even better, because your glycemic index will be, in range all the time, rather than just floating around, which was a problem that I had, because I was a big time consumer of huge amounts of tahini, huge amounts of peanut butter, and sometimes I was just wondering, why am I getting like a 300 glycemic index just eating some carrots and dip them into tahini. That's because tahini is actually increasing your insulin sensitivity. So even though you are just eating some vegetables like carrots, or some things that you would not think that could cause such a spike, in fact you are having a spike, just because the lower the low amount of carbohydrates that they contain will just stay in your blood, and you will not be able to process it correctly because of the huge amount of fat that you are forcing your body to ingest and to process. So yeah, in terms of resources, I had a few here, which is, of course, the first one is this one is Mastering Diabetes, their YouTube channel and even their book. It's quite has had a big impact on the way I approach diabetes in general. Then the other one will be this one. This is not what I wanted to show you. This is what I wanted to show you. Just give me a minute. Dr. Greger. Voila. Nutritionfacts.org. This is a great source of information. Both the YouTube channel and the website and his books. Those are also kind of amazing. Another great source of information is Dr. Bernard. You can find him here. Oh, yeah, of course, there is gonna be some ad playing. But he's one of the main researchers, main sources of reference for handling diabetes with a plant-based diet. And I highly recommend every one of his talks, every one of his contributions. And then, of course, the channel of Mick the Vegan, another great one, who has a really science-based approach to explaining everything. He's vegan, and he has a lot of videos explaining the concepts of insulin resistance, the concepts around everything around carbohydrates, and a little bit to understand a little bit better how it works, how it does not work. So here I have actually three videos recommended. Another thing that I wanted to show you is Matt Walker. Matt Walker is a sleep researcher, and a big part of his research is about the impact of sleep on diabetes. So if you want to consume something, some very interesting videos on YouTube, here is another couple of things that you should be considering, and that might maybe explain why you're not able to manage your diabetes properly. It certainly rang a bell in my head, and since I started to sleep more consistently, for longer and better, especially my blood glucose and overall health got a lot better. The video that I showed you before, which was a little bit out of context, was from one of the one of the channels that I use for yoga, which is this one, Breathe and Flow. They are both vegan, plant-based, and they have a huge, great channels with yoga for beginners to advanced people. And I really like their approach because it's very mindful and very yeah, so minimalistic, and I just like it. And plus their advanced classes will kick your ass. So yeah, that was it. A few improvement points for me is avoid to eat too much at dinner, probably. Usually I had such a big bowl that then I wake up during the night just to go to the toilet. um, Another thing is, yeah, maybe a topic for another time, eating with others, eating outside, when everyone is asking you, why are you not eating this, eating that? Oftentimes is a little bit annoying to, having to explain why you are eating a certain way, why you're making certain choices. And yeah, it might get a little bit annoying from time to time. And the other thing is intermittent fasting. This is something that I would try to introduce, that I want to try to introduce, because I tried it in the past, and my ability to control blood glucose was absolutely outstanding. I never had better, a more stable glycemic index than that period. I'm actually having it now, but in that period it was absolutely fantastic. I had no problems with managing it. My insulin level also decreased a lot. Yeah, this is something that I want to try again. And yeah, in general, since I started um, to eat lower fats, my carbohydrates intake grew a lot in terms of grams, almost tripled than like as compared to 3 to 4 months ago. I don't have it documented here, but I will document it in the future for sure. But despite the increase in a gram of carbohydrate per day, my insulin level almost halved, and that it's quite interesting to witness. So I will definitely continue on this path, focusing on good sources of carbohydrate, exercise, sleep, and yeah, that is gonna be it. Those are the most important factor, I think. So yeah, I will probably do some more what I eat in a day videos in the future. Maybe also share my workout routines, share a little bit more of my process behind managing diabetes. Let me know if that might help you, what tools I use, the mobile applications, programs, how do I calculate my ratios, and so on. So yeah, that's it, and I'm excited to do more of this. Definitely interesting. Bye bye.